Hello mom friends, welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to put together a basic garter that would be great for anyone making their first time garter in high school or whatever grade level. This one is actually going to be for a freshman, and it's a kind of a pre-made set that Rain and I already had. So for my mom business owners, you can kind of see how we prep things in the off season and get ready. And then for my DIY crafters, I think this will give you some good tips for assembling your first mom or garter. And lastly, we get lots of questions about how we use a bandana instead of a garter band to attach. And so we wanted to go over that as well. And then lastly, I want to show you one of the most popular upgrades that our clients choose for our garters. So let's get started. So before we put our garter together, we need to prepare our backers so they'll be ready for our bandana. Those of you that watch our videos know that Rain and I primarily use a 7-inch round backer for the majority of our mums and garters. For this particular garter, it's going to be a single 7.5-inch flower. So we're going to use one 7-inch backer. And so this one template we're going to use to make the cuts that we need for both of these. And for my homecoming business owners, this is a great thing to have if you decide to use this method. For those of you that are making maybe just one garter, then you can just kind of use the measurements to create. I'm going to put a picture up so that you can see the spacing on this, but just remember, if you're using a different size backer, you can just adjust accordingly. The same concept can be used. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make this a little bit larger so that we will be able to easily put our bandana in there. It's approximately a 1-inch square. So I'm just going to trace it out on my template, and then I'm going to use my Cricut True Blade, kind of like an X-Acto knife. And just remember, I am using a self-healing mat, so I don't have to worry about the surface below me. But if you do not have a self-healing mat, just make sure you protect the surface below you. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure on these lines. It does not have to be perfect. This is going to be your inside backer. It's not going to be seen. The main goal of this is just to make sure that we can easily put our bandana in there when we're ready. So let me pop that out real quick. And so this one is ready. So this is going to be the one that we're going to put our loops on. And then the next backer is going to be kind of our finishing backer. And we're going to trace these two little rectangles here. I think my pencil broke on me. The fun of video. Okay, so then we have these two. These two I try to be a little bit careful making this one a little bit more straight just because it's going to be on the finishing side. But again, it does not have to be perfect. I like to kind of do both of these that are going both directions. And then come back and do them this way. Okay. And we can pop those out. Okay, and then we have used this one template to make the backer that we're going to put our loops on and the backer that's going to be our finishing backer. So now let's go ahead and work on making our actual garter. Okay, now we're ready to start making our backer loops. So Rayan and I actually prep our backer loops in the off season just because it's one of the most time consuming things. But I will go ahead while I'm making them and kind of show you what they are. So both of these are going to be double back. So they're going to, where there's a shiny side on the inside and the outside. And then on these, we're going to have these are number 16. We're going to have either a black or a green opposite number 9. And then we're going to have 2 number 5s here just because that keeps our white nice and bright. So I'm going to use my little automatic stapler just because I staple so much during the season that I try every time that I can to save my hands of that repetitive motion. But of course you can use a regular stapler as well. So just some tips when you're doing this. If you have trouble lining them all up, you could always staple the first two staples and the first two layers and then staple another one as well. This automatic stapler we find works really well for anything number 9 and above. If you're a homecoming business owner and do lots of stapling, it's one that we added this season, and I am in love with how I say all the time, between the weeding of glitter vinyl for cutouts and the repetitive motion of stapling, I can already tell just in these few months of prep that this is really going to help. But these loops for this particular garter are 6 inches. Are 6 inches long. And so for our 7.5 and our 6.5 inch flower garters, we find that that's a good length. If you're working with a 9.5 inch flower, I would suggest going up to a 8 inch. That's what we do, is we go up to an 8 inch. We really like, even though it's more ribbon, we look at every now and then, even the automatic one doesn't work perfectly, and I have to use my other stapler. But again, I love that it saves me. We love putting a shiny side on the inside too. It just really makes it to where, because you do see that in the backer, and so it just really adds to everything that we're doing. I think that last one, the stapler did not catch. Yeah, the stapler caught everything, but this very last one, probably because, see, it was a tiny bit shorter. So I'll just add another little staple there. And then we're going to get these all done. These we did for our garters. We prep 2 sets of 8. And sometimes we don't always use 16. Sometimes we'll use a 40 and 9 combination. But basically, we know that 95% of our garters are going to be single. So we do prep them that way. So let me get them divided out, and then we will put them on our backer. Okay, now we're ready to put these loops on this backer. I wanted to show you, I know we talked about it in our triple heart backer, that sometimes it's hard to line these up and keep all of the spacing even. And I don't do this much for singles, but I did want to show you that you could do it. If you fold your backer in half and then fold it in half again, then when you're ready to put your loops on here, we're going to put our first loop on here. And for my first loop, I always like to kind of put my flower on and even hold it up a little bit kind of towards me and see if I like where it is. And then once I get it on there, I'll make sure it's kind of good and perpendicular. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this, and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to put the next matching loop right there with it. Not only even, but I'm going to kind of press it and squeeze it to make sure that it's the same height as well. And then you can kind of do the same thing on this as well. Go ahead and put this one on here. Kind of gauge it a little bit. You can also use your, if you have a self-healing mat, I also sometimes use it to kind of guide it. Now I can go this way and make sure that one is good and even as well. Again, it's not necessary. It's been a game changer for us for making triples and quads and things like that. But if you struggle a little bit with keeping that, it's a great way to do it. Now we kind of have a good guide. And so we can go and just kind of put these in the middle, and we can just kind of even them there with the point. And that will help us know that they're going to line up pretty even. And then I'll also kind of know that my spacing is good that way too. So just go around and get these on here. I've watched Rayanne do it. She can kind of do it with one hand and just have the stapler in one hand and just circle that backer around. I end up having to set my stapler down. But I do like this because it allows you to kind of get your spacing and even it out. So now I'm ready for my second row. And for my second row, I think I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. Since I'm using the same width of ribbon, it'll give it a little bit of definition. But let's put that flower back on there and see kind of, that way I can gauge. I think kind of like that, just a little bit. So I'm going to put this one at an angle kind of between those. And the nice thing about this little square that we made for our bandana is we can also allow us to get that in there a little bit easier. And then I can just space it up the same, kind of even right here as well. And we're just going to go all the way around and add that second layer. We don't always do the same width. This is just kind of the way this one was designed when we made it. It's got some kind of coordinating loops as part of the garter. I also like using crazy loops sometimes, or especially for garters, like a pointed loop. And sometimes we use 40s and sometimes we use 16s on the back. For our larger mums and garters, we always have a 40, 1 or 2 layers of 40. But sometimes for our singles, especially for our garters, we'll just do a 16. So we'll just continue to go all the way around. Again, I love being able to get in with my stapler right there. And we're almost to our last loop. I think I stapled on top of the staple there, so I'm going to do that again to make sure it's good and secure. And we're to our very last loop. We'll get that one in there, and then let's set our flower on there. I think I'm happy with that, so let's get ready to put our bandana in there. We just use a standard bandana for our garters. We actually just use these black and white ones for all of our garters because we buy them in bulk on Amazon. But you could coordinate if you were wanting to coordinate with your color, however you wanted to do it. You can buy them at any store. But if you are a homecoming business owner, there is a good bulk option on Amazon, and I'll put that down below. So we'll go ahead and open up this garter bandana. It's a bandana that will be for a garter. And we are just going to turn it, and we're going to cut it in half at a diagonal. And what's going to happen is one bandana will make 2 garters for us. And so I'm going to put this other one aside. But as you can see here, we have basically a kind of a triangle. And so what we're going to do is we're going to fold it. We're going to start folding it. We're just going to fold it flat. And then I usually fold it a little bit this way and tuck it this way as well, so that the ends will all be covered. We're going to keep folding, and then once we get it all folded, we're going to fold it in half so that it's even. And then we'll take our scissors, and we're just going to cut it in half right here. And then I'm going to set this first one aside. And we'll take this one, make sure it stays good and folded. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it on the back of our backer. But the first thing you want to do that's real important is if you have a garter that has a top and a bottom, you want to make sure that we're going to line this up perpendicular to where it wants to be. And then what we're going to do is we're going to staple this. We're going to put it in the back right here. And then we're just going to staple it with our stapler quite a few times. That will get that bandana good and secure. And then as you can see in the back, it's good and secure. It's not going to come unfolded because of the staples. And so we'll just take our second one. And if it has a little piece like this, I usually put it this way, just so when it's stapled, it is good and secure. And again, it doesn't really matter which way you staple because all of this is going to be hidden and covered with either a flower or a finishing backer. But this is what those little, other than helping us with our second layer of backer loops, it really helps you get that garter in there nice and secure. And then I'm just going to tie this up so that it will be out of our way while we do the rest of our assembly. So there is our garter. We're ready to go. Now let's attach our backer. We'll put our skirt together, all the braids and everything, and then we'll attach our backer. One quick thing for my homecoming business owners before we attach the backer to the skirt, I wanted to let you know that Rain and I actually, for our 6.5 and our 7.5, most of the time, because we either have tons of these McKinley or tons of these Reliant, we actually use these for our garters. And for McKinley, we just use one. It's a little bit smaller, so we put the loops out a little bit closer to the edge. And then for Reliant, it's a little bit bigger, but it's a little bit thinner, so we usually staple two together. But if you do lots of mums and garters, you go through lots of these. So that's just a good tip to save on supplies. And then we also, this is a great thing to do in the off season and go ahead and prepare these so that you have them. So just a quick tip. Now let's get to putting this skirt and backer together. Okay, let's get ready to put this garter together. So we have our skirt. If you haven't seen how we do our skirts, I'll put a card up above and you can watch our skirt video. It has both mums and garters, but if you're doing a garter, you can just skip to the garter section. It also tells how we use all of our strips. This is an 8-inch strip, and that's what we're going to use with our 7.5-inch single flowers. It has a loop on here because we do make our skirts standing up on our costumer, and normally I would put all the braids and everything that I'm going to put on here when it was hanging up on my costumer, and you can probably see that in some of our lives or some of our other videos. But I thought since this was a garter and it's not going to have very many layers because it's a very basic garter, that I would just show you that it can be done laying down. That way you would have you could see that option in one of our videos and how it works with the skirt strip. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through what we put on our things. I do put some imprint ribbon on here that I talked about in our skirt video, but we always put class ribbon, and because it's flat, I usually start with that. And this one's for a freshman, and we do use our Bostic B8, the bigger one, when it comes time for assembly. It's new for us this year. We used our P3 for a long time, but we're really liking, especially with those new 3/8-inch staples, how it fits all the way through. So we've got that there, and then I think next I'm going to put the Texas Champion. It is one of my favorites for garters. And I'll put a link down to our braiding tutorial series. Depending on when you're watching this, it will depend on what all's in there, because we're adding kind of braiding videos as we can. And so you can check that out. And of course, there's lots of other YouTube videos as well that you can put out there. But the Texas Champion is one of my favorite for garters. And then let's see, let's put the Victory Braid. Let's put the Victory Braid over here. Kind of will angle out a little bit. And I'm going to just staple it, and then we'll go back and secure it even more. And then one of the other things we put on our all of our mums and garters are what we call specialty ribbon. This one was I was talking about, it kind of coordinates with those loops that we did. But let me show you a couple of other ones just so you can see. We try to vary it up from every mum and garter to kind of make them unique. Sorry, I had to lean over to get them, but here's just some examples of some specialty ribbons and some ideas that you could do. And so for our traditional, for this garter, we put 1 on there. For some of our other mums and garters, we'll put up to 3, but we're going to put this one on there. I think I'm going to lay it right here, but before I staple everything down, I'm going to lay everything out and see how everything is laying out. And then we're going to put our homecoming loops on there. And so for our homecoming loops, I'll put a link to our HTV HOCO loop tutorial. If you have a Cricut and you or Silhouette or any cutting machine and you want to make them, it will have this, or you can follow that tutorial, just skip through to the end. And so what we do for our garters is these are 5-inch loops. We found that allows homecoming to fit really well on there. And then if you wanted to use stickers, these HTV are 1-inch, so you could use those. You could use stickers as well. So there's our homecoming loops. And then we always put a military braid on all of our mums and garters, and there is definitely a tutorial already out there for that, since we put that on all of our mums and garters. And so I kind of have this laid out, and again, I'll put a picture up there so you can kind of see how I would normally have it hanging, so that I could see the way everything else. But I think I'm pretty happy with that. So let me go ahead and let's staple in this homecoming. And again, that's why I like this Bostic, because it's going to get through all of those layers of braids and everything else. And then my military, I'm going to kind of do it so that you can still see a little bit of the freshman. And get that stapled on there really good. Let's see, I think I only put one in the victory, so let's put one more. Okay, let me hang this up so that you can see an idea of kind of what it looks like on our costume and how we normally assemble it hanging up, and then we will attach the backer. Now we're ready to attach our backer. So I'm going to go ahead and take off this little blue strip, because we really just used it for assembly. And then make sure that I get all those staples out so they don't poke me. And then we save these and use these over and over again. Okay, so for my singles, you can do this upside down, but for my singles, I've gotten to where I just apply the glue and then I put it on. You just have to, for the garters, you want to make sure that it's perpendicular. So you can decide which is easier for you. If you want to do it this way and bring your skirt over like this, and put it this way, and I'll probably do it this way for you so that you can see the perpendicular piece. But I did want to tell you, especially like for a single mom that you're not dealing with this, if with the garter piece, if you're wanting to really make sure, like say it was one that your homecoming loops was in the middle and you wanted to make sure that you get this lined up, that you could put your glue here and then come and apply here as well. That way you can visually see everything. So I just wanted to show you both options. But for this one, I think I'm going to turn it over, especially that way you can see it. And the hardest part for me for this is to make sure that I keep the glue off of my garter strip. So I've only got one finger protector on. I would recommend we use our really high temp Ryobi, so I always try to wear them. But for those of you who think that I'm super organized, for some reason, a lot of my finger protectors have disappeared. And so I actually ordered some that are an extra small size for me, for my fingers. And if for those of you who have little fingers like me, I will let you know about that. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to apply some glue here, and then we will just put our skirt strip on there. Again, be very, very careful. You can actually, I don't know if you can see on the camera how the glue actually is steaming. I'm going to turn this over, and I'm just going to get this and make sure that it stays good and perpendicular. I'm going to pick it up to be careful because the glue is going to be very hot. You can't see it on camera, but I'm just checking to see if I'm happy where it's located. And then I'm going to set it back down. Again, the reason for finger protectors is the glue can really come through. And we're just going to let this set for just a little while, and then we will come back and put staples in here as well to make sure that it is good and secure. Got to make sure that that glue dries too, so that when I turn it over, it doesn't get all over myself healing that. Sometimes I'll have little pieces of cardboard that when that happens, I'll kind of scrape it to protect everything around it. And then I'll just put it on my glass mat. And it's okay that it got a little glue right there because we're actually going to put a backer strip on there. Okay, so let's let this set for just another minute, and then we're going to come through with our big boss stitch and get some more staples in there. And I don't know, Rain and I talked about it on one of our lives. For like the first few years, we put the flowers inside of our backers and then assembled. And like last year, I don't remember what happened, but we just did it for one reason without it. And we were like, oh my goodness, that's so much easier. So now, except for like the really, really big ones, Texas and really big quads that she feels like they need stability, she'll put the flowers in. But other than that, we leave it like that. Okay, let's flip it back over and see what we think. So there is our backer. So now we are ready to put the flower in. And again, for me, the biggest part is to make sure we tuck that garter so that when we put the flower in there, we don't get glue on the garter. Okay. So we have our flower, 7.5 inch flower. It is prepped. So we'll make sure that we put that pipe cleaner in there after we get some glue. And we're just going to apply, again, very hot glue. So we're going to be very, very careful. We're going to apply a lot of glue. We go through a lot of hot glue here at my house and Rayanne's house. And then we'll make sure we can get that pipe cleaner through there. I'm going to lift it up, and then we will secure that flower down really good. And then just kind of hold it down for just a little bit. And again, this is a 7.5 inch flower, and these are 6 inch loops. For our 6.5 and our 7.5 inch flowers, we use 6 inch. We prep them. The 6 inch, we would just probably pull it in a little bit more on the backer. But when we get to that 9.5 inch flower, we definitely move to 8 inch loops. Okay. Now we're going to turn this over. And I've got my garter there. Now I'm going to untie it so that we can do our finishing touches. Okay, and a little bit of glue right there on the garter is fine. I just don't want to get glue on this outside that they're going to touch. And then I've got to make sure that I can get in there and secure that chenille stem as well. Sometimes it's hard to get in there and get that. I just want to make sure it has a couple of staples. Let's see if I can get in there a little bit better with my bigger boss stitch. Okay, so we're good and secure there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our little 8 inch strip and we're going to put it right here to finish everything out. And you can use your heavy duty high temp for this, or you can use, since I got a little bit of staples right there, I'm going to push this down just a little bit to hide those staples, or you can use a less temp. Just make sure if you use this high temp that you definitely wear finger protectors, because this thin cardstock is not going to be enough to protect your fingers from that extreme heat. Then we'll go in and we'll secure these. Again, it kind of sandwiches in that chenille stem a little bit more. Try to get that chenille stem one more time. And then it also kind of finishes out the look. Okay, and now we're ready to come back to that backer that we made. And so this is where the finishing part comes in. So first we're going to take, just like we do with all of ours, and we're going to put a little piece of, we kind of just keep these strips cut and ready for us. I'm going to put this right here. Again, it's very hot. And then this is where those pre-cut that we cut comes into play. Because we're going to put these in here. And what that does is it kind of finishes it out, but it also hopefully keeps this backer from tearing and kind of secures in those garter strips for us really well. So then we get it all finished out like this, and then I'm just going to go in there and put some hot glue in between. Okay, we got the hot glue on this part over here. So now I'm going to come here and put some hot glue. And again, you don't have to use your high temp on this if you feel more comfortable using your other one. We just use it and use our finger protectors. Okay. And then we can tie off our garter. You know, we switched to garters. I guess last year was our first year because after a couple years of making mums and doing lots of mums and garters, one time we had a garter elastic band fall off or fall apart, and they had to bring it back to us. And then we have instances that the garter's too big or the garter's too small, and so we just like this one. That we got really positive feedback that it's more comfortable to wear, but that way it's adjustable for all sizes. Put a little hanger piece on here so that if they want to hang their garter up, they can. And of course my painter's tape, because you guys know how I like to secure all my ribbon with painter's tape. And actually I normally would have already done this and put it in the center thing, but you know how it goes when you're doing videos. You get to thinking about videos and you don't think about your step. So do as I say, not as I do. And I would put this in here before you put this finished backer on. That way it is sandwiched in here and really good and secure. But for this weight of the garter, I'm not very concerned about it. I'll go in and add a little bit of hot glue underneath there after this video is done. Okay, and then the very last thing we're going to do is we're just going to put our little finishing. The other thing that we'll do is it will make it to where you maybe just have one staple out here instead of 4. So we'll put our little sticker on there. And then I'm just going to go around and secure a couple more places. And I've already secured it there. So we're good and secure. Let's turn this over. Fluff our flower back out. And then I'm going to show you one of the popular things that's really popular with our clients. They love, we take this, it's around 16 inches, and we just call it a military braid in the flower. And what we're going to do is we've stapled it so it's good and flat. And I'm going to tuck it up underneath here. I'm going to get underneath that flower. And I like it. I don't know if you can see in the camera. See how it kind of is consistent with this one, almost as if it's just a continuation. And I'm going to get it, once I get it in there, then I'm going to take my stapler and I'm going to just staple that military braid in there on all sides so that it's good and secure. And then I'm going to flip it over. And it's different. Sometimes we have to cut it, right? We do about 16 because that will usually get us even our 9-inch. But I'm going to cut this one just a little bit. And then re-staple it here so it's good and secure. As you can see, I'm using my P3 and my Boss Tip BA all at the same time. You can use either one. And then I'm just going to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to tuck it underneath there. And I'm stapling it to the backers. And this as well you can do before you do the finishing out backer so that you don't get any staples on your backer as well. But again, when you're videoing, sometimes you are thinking about videoing and you do it a little bit different. I like to get it where it's good and tucked in there. You know what? I love that ball stick, but I think the P3. I'm just going to get in there because it's really secure. Okay. And then, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of like it's continuation. And I'll put a picture up there. What we'll do is then we'll put a cutout right here. And our clients really like that. And speaking of cutouts, I'm not going to do a finishing out on this one. You can kind of, because I'm not exactly sure exactly what all needs to go in on this one. But of course, we would put their names sometimes on the military braid. And then, like I just pulled an example cutout. Like we could put a cutout here if it fit, or a cutout. We would cover the staples and put it right here. But you can see our finishing touches video. I'll put that up as well, and that will show you. So I'm hoping that all of these steps will help you. You can see our finished out backer there. I'm hoping that this will give you some ideas for putting together a backer. And if you struggled with a garter band, maybe this bandana idea might give you another clue as well. Again, it's not really anything Rayanne and I came up with. Other people use it. This is just our variation of how we use it. So I think that that's it for now, friends. Hopefully we'll be bringing you some more assembly videos of other sizes as well. But for now, happy creating.